So I'm Belinda and I'm part of the committee for Agile on the Beach. So welcoming you all here. I think I've spoken to quite a few of you on Twitter or Woda, or if you've had emails, it might have come from me. So hello. Hopefully I'll get a chance to say hello to everybody. I'm also doing a session this year. And just to say, so on Twitter I'm being Agile or Belinda Waldock, or tweet through Agile on the Beach, the hashtag #AgileOTB. If you do AOTB, that's actually a metal rock band from America who have already got that tag, so hence that's why we don't use that one. So, like I say, I'm Belinda. I'm from Cornwall. This is kind of where I live. This is St Austell Bay, which is about 20 miles up the road, and absolutely beautiful area of the country. I'm very lucky to be down here. And the work I do, I kind of wear a number of hats. The last few years I've worked a lot in European funded projects and helping businesses to adopt IT, and also helping IT businesses to grow. So I kind of work on the demand and the supply side of things. So if you like, IT companies that are supplying solutions, but also businesses that are demanding those solutions. So working on both sides of that. And I'm involved in Agile on the Beach, so I do the kind of marketing and promotions for that. I also head up Software Cornwall, which is a new network of businesses down here where we're growing software community. And my kind of third hat is being Agile in Business, which is my coaching and consulting that I do in terms of helping businesses to adopt Agile. But I'm not a techie. I've got a degree in computer science, but I got to year 3, we hit object-oriented programming, and it went whoosh. So I did computer law instead because I found that easier. So any developers in the room, I have massive respect for you. Just to show of hands, actually, how many developers in the room? Quite a few. Cool. Project managers, business owners, everyone else? Yeah, so quite a bit of a mix. So hopefully this will kind of be relevant to you all, I hope, and just really sharing a few of the stories behind how we've been agile in business down here in Cornwall. So as I say, this is our lovely view. This is the St Austell Print Company, and my house is just over here out of view. We booked this weather especially, but don't be fooled, because in Cornwall it can change literally within the hour. We can go from beautiful sunshine to liquid sunshine. So I do suggest for the beach party this evening, if you've got one, bring a fleece, because it gets a bit wimpy with the sea breeze. So, getting on with my presentation, really this kind of idea of the agile way and being agile, and to me there's kind of layers of that. It's all very well and good adopting the kind of processes and tools that agile will give you to help that, but really there's a real mindset shift that's needed for people to become agile in terms of the way that they're thinking, as well as the approach that they're taking. And actually that needs to be throughout an organisation, not just an individual in the organisation, but the culture of the organisation. It has to be agile itself. So it's more than just processes and tools to me, and I'll talk quite a bit about the kind of, and really linking back to the kind of Agile Manifesto all the time. So, Agile on the Beach, every year people say, oh, you should tell the Agile on the Beach story in that sense, because in a way, Agile on the Beach has been an agile process in itself, an agile creation. So we started, this is our 5th event this year, and we started off fully funded by the European Union. We were 80% funded by the European Union and 20% on tickets. And my goal when I joined the team in the 2nd year was to get the conference to a point where last year it was going to be self-sustaining. So we didn't need to be dependent on European funding anymore. So we needed to get that ratio from 80% European funded, 20% private, really swapped around. And we managed that last year, so we had a very small amount of European funded last year. If any of you are from Cornwall, you know that the European funding at the moment is kind of in limbo. So actually this year is a great celebration because we are 100% private funded. We have no European funding this year. We have the support of the universities and the colleges, but that's coming out of their pots because they see the value now, which is an extraordinary achievement. And really we've had to, so we know that change has been coming, so Agile has been a really good approach and way of thinking for us, because we know that we're going to have to change. We've accepted that that change is happening. And you might have seen us running around a bit in that sense that we need to be agile at the conference. So with the breakfast this morning, for those of you who stayed on B&B, the bacon that they were serving was absolutely delicious. But Claire actually sorted that out yesterday evening because that was our plan B for catering. And you might have noticed us all swarming the tea and coffee as well to get you tea and coffee. So we try and take some of the practices that you see kind of in agile development and use those more widely in business. So the kind of whole business model for Agile on the Beach has been very agile in that sense, to get us to a point where we can run this conference without being dependent on funded bodies. From a marketing point of view as well, I try and use agile thinking. So the idea of the Pareto principle, the 20% of your effort creates 80% of the value. For the first 3 years of the conference, I did it voluntarily. So it was kind of part of my job, but equally I was doing it a lot of evenings and weekends and website updates and things. So I had to be, I can't do it all. So it was very much kind of, okay, what are our key channels for marketing the conference? What are our key things that we need to tell people about the conference and focus on those? So things like Twitter is a key channel. I could spend weeks advertising this conference on Facebook and wouldn't sell a single ticket. So to me, there's no value in doing that. And it is kind of common sense in that sense. But I mean, one of my dad's favourite phrases is common sense isn't very common anymore. So it's that kind of idea of actually taking some of these agile thinking and actually applying them a bit more broadly. And Agile on the Beach has kind of grown beyond the conference as well. So we've also now got Software Cornwall, which is a collaborative network. Both of them are not-for-profit as well, by the way. So that's another kind of complication that we face sometimes. But Software Cornwall, again, has really kind of come out and when I was thinking about what do I kind of talk about in terms of being agile in terms of Software Cornwall, things like we use crowdfunding, crowdsourcing for skills. So if we get a handful of people, we had, many of you familiar with Getify from JavaScript programmer? He came over from the States and we basically crowdsourced 22 developers in Cornwall to get enough money in to get him over here to run the course. Whereas that's usually kind of the other way around. Usually you book the person, then you try and sell the tickets. I do it the other way around. We sell the tickets, then we book the person. So we try and take that kind of approach of a demand-driven approach. And actually, when you look at our kind of themes of skills and knowledge transfer and business support and recruitment, careers development, collaboration and networking, these are all kind of very much on that kind of left-hand side of the manifesto about people, about collaboration. So one of the things that we've changed in the manifesto for Software Cornwall is rather than collaboration over contract negotiation, we talk about collaboration over competition. So actually in Cornwall there's a great hub of software companies. We've got real growing pains, we can't get enough people. There's a real issue, our key issue is the kind of skills gap. So the one thing that we've been working on is fixing the pipeline. So getting that pipeline, getting that flow working so that we're actually feeding students into the process and then getting them out the other end ready, skilled up to join the companies down here. And really it's this kind of idea that actually the members kind of talk about this idea of actually we're greater working together. You know, we can achieve more rather than, I mean, right, a few years back I was kind of saying, you know, rather than us fighting over hotel websites in the county, let's all work together because there's a big global economy out there for software development. So it's really interesting, I think, how you can kind of take some of the ideas of Agile. So we use things like Trello boards and we use, we're all very remote, so very rarely that all the teams are in the same place. So we use a lot of kind of communication tools to do that and have boards so that we can track what each other are doing. And it's worked really, really successfully. And I've kind of done it with hundreds of businesses now. So a lot of the businesses that were part of Software Cornwall or also part of the programme have been incredibly kind of inspired, I guess would be the word, of adopting Agile and seeing things evolve for them and actually uncovering what are their growing pains and how can they solve those problems. One of the stories that I've been telling lately, which is the story of my book. So as well as kind of taking this Agile approach with the companies that we're developing, I was asked last year if I would be interested in writing a book, which is Being Agile in Business, which is a book about Agile, a simple introduction to Agile, if you like, for non-software people. So it gives people an introduction and insight into things like retrospectives and sprints and metrics and different things. But when I got approached by Pearson, they kind of told me, and it sounded very much like the way we used to develop software. So they kind of say, okay, so what you do is you write your book proposal and you tell us what you're going to write. So you go away for a couple of months, write that, bring it back, give it to the committee, and the committee will tear it apart and you'll have to completely rework it. And then we'll do that a couple of times. And then once you've done that, then we'll agree it. And then you go and lock yourself in a cupboard for 6 months, write your book, and then you bring it back to us, and then we'll give it to the edit, and they'll rip it apart, and then you'll have to completely rework it in a couple of weeks. And then and I was like, I can't write a book like that. I can't do that. Can we take an Agile approach? And Eloise, who was my editor, was absolutely fabulous. And she was like, yeah, I'm really game for this. So what we did was we kind of basically broke it down into chunks and did 2-3 week sprints and got feedback from her each time. And it worked really, really successfully because with the proposal we did the same thing. So literally the first, oh this isn't showing very well, literally that was the first proposal that I sent to Eloise. I basically, the elements of the proposal that she wanted, I post-it noted it out, sent it to her, and she then fed back on it, which then built into a proposal. Which meant when it went to the committee, it got green light first time. Because we'd already done the work, we'd done those iterations, we'd got the proposal to the point where we knew the committee were going to like it, we'd shown it to a couple of the committee, they'd fed back. And the only thing they actually changed was that we changed the name from Being Agile in Business to, oh I can't remember that, but we changed the name, and they changed it back. So the only change they made was to revert back to something that we'd already put forward. And a similar thing happened with actually writing the book. So we did the similar thing. So I started off, so this middle bit is the contents. So this was kind of like, okay, this is my brain dump of, you know, all the things that I think I'd like to put in the book. And again, we kind of went through this and we got the structure, and what I did was I started writing, so I picked kind of my favourite post-it note basically and wrote that bit of the book, sent it to Eloise, and then she gave me feedback. So that really helped. The first couple of sprints really helped us to get the tone and the structure and the way I was talking de-Cornished me, because I'm from Cornish. So I'd write things like, I was quite upset actually, because at one point, because the retrospectives like, what's gone well, what's gone better, what can we do, is in the book is what has gone well, what could go better. And I'm like, oh no, it should be a bit more kind of verbal than that, but the joy of proofreaders. So it was really interesting how we kind of adapted in a very traditional kind of linear process, which is publishing, which is proposal, write the book, do the cover, do the proofreading, publish the book. We took that kind of element and actually introduced the sprints, which then allowed the feedback. Because I think if I'd shut myself away for 6 months, written the book, and come back and she had asked me to rewrite the whole book, I don't think the book would ever have got published because it would have just killed my motivation and my enthusiasm. So getting that feedback early was really, really powerful, and it helped us to form a really good relationship, which then meant that the book really started to flow out. And we actually managed to get the book written in 16 weeks, which is a really short timeline in terms of having the book written and done in time. And she was like, nobody ever reaches the deadline. And actually we came in on time, we came in on budget, we came in, and actually it was really interesting because so the book had to be finished by the beginning of January. At the beginning of December we had the kind of pre-draft manuscript submission. And when we got to that point, I needed to write 40,000 words as a minimum, and I kind of got to 30,000. And the post-it notes that were left, I was like, oh my God, I've still got like another 100,000 words to write. So actually I was able to go, well no I haven't, I've only got another 10,000 words to write to hit my target. So what's the, if there were 10 post-it notes there, what's the one I'm going to pick and write those words on? And actually park other stuff. So some stuff didn't get in, like business model canvas, didn't get into the book, because I actually realised that realistically that's probably a book all in its own right to adapt business model canvas to be readable to a non-technical person. Would take quite a lot of time and effort, so we parked that. So I think it's a really nice example of how you can use Agile in different ways, and you can still use it in a traditional environment as well, so you can make your part Agile, even if the rest of the company isn't. But also, the really lovely thing is that since doing the book, the Pearson team and the marketing team that are helping with the book have both adopted Agile. So they've both photographed their boards and gone, we've started doing boards, we've started doing our project management with Agile, and we're trying to do this with other people. Because they know that leaving, just letting an author disappear for 6 months, they're losing control as well, so they're not seeing what the author's writing. So actually, while Eloise was quite concerned that she would be getting, stuff off me every couple of weeks, she said actually it was much quicker and easier, because I could then, it was literally, once we'd got 3 or 4 sprints in, she was just coming back and going, yeah, it's great, and just tweaking things. So there was no real rework, because we worked that out at the beginning. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any questions, any thoughts? Excellent. Yeah. So, I mean, it was quite...
I want to write a book about writing a book.
Is it? Well, one of the things that we said is, should I write it as a case study to go into the book? But it felt a little bit kind of like vain almost, like oh, it's gone so well. But yeah, it's really interesting, quite scary from my perspective, because obviously I hadn't written a book before, didn't know what I was doing, and I was just going to change the whole process of doing it. So it was quite a kind of interesting to start and quite scary to start, but actually within a couple of weeks, I mean, it was the most enjoyable process I've ever, I've ever done, and I really enjoyed it, and it was great fun. So it's yeah, it's nice. I think it's a really nice example of how we can adopt Agile in different ways. So then I've got the other thing that I wanted to do today as well, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that have gone really well, and some of the resistance that I've faced. So in terms of adopting Agile, I've worked with a lot of different businesses, and this business is a mining searches business. So in Cornwall we have a lot of mining history, so if you buy a house you have to mine the searches. And this company do 2 things. They have a team of geologists who go out and actually do the mining surveys, and then they have a mining searches team who keep an archive of all the searches, so when you buy a house, the solicitor will contact them and say, have you got a search for this? Yes, here's the report. No, we'll send out geologists to do it. And they were really struggling with capacity, basically. They'd hit capacity with their teams. They were starting a lot of projects, not finishing them. Things were very inefficient, but because they were running at capacity, they had no time to change and improve. So working with Paul, who's the MD there, he was like, we really need to create some slack. So the first thing we did was we looked at ways of creating some capacity within the project, within the team, to actually create that slack. So we started off with some easy wins that would create them a bit of time, and get to them to a point where they were kind of 80% running the business and 20% changing the business and growing the business. So having that bit of slack built in. And that's where it really, really successful. And we did that by having boards. So basically we said, okay, all the change projects will be on basically on an Agile Kanban board. And that allowed it to become visible. The other thing that the MD will admit to being guilty of is that he would have great ideas about improvement projects, and he would walk into the office in the morning and go, guys, stop everything. I've had this great idea, we need to do this. And it was just incredibly disruptive and interruption, and and Paul was well aware that he was doing it, but there was no other way to do it. So actually it was really great having the board, because he'd have great ideas, stick them on the board, and then when they had their morning huddles or the retrospectives or the planning meetings, then that would be introduced and brought in. And actually that gave him a bit of thinking time as well, because quite often when you come up with these kind of, wow, isn't that a great idea, after a couple of days of thinking about it, you think, yeah, maybe it's not quite right, or maybe we need to change this about a bit. So it was quite a nice way to kind of just manage the workflow that was coming into them. But I wanted to show you this because one of the key things that we really wanted to do was get them working as a team. So although like the archive team, and it's actually gone viral since, so every team in the business now has got boards, but we wanted to get them working more as a team. Although they all did separate jobs, we wanted to get them just working together. So again, having the board was a great way of doing that. And one of the things we did is we did like a retrospective game. So if you're familiar with innovation games, there's a game called the Speedboat, which is about identifying the anchors that are holding you back. And in Cornwall we prefer sailing boats, so I've adapted the game slightly. So we have the sailing boat game, and the idea there is, as part of the retrospective, is to, so what we do is, first of all, we just brainstorm out all the things that are either kind of putting wind in our sails or anchors that are holding us back. And we plot those, so these are the anchors and these are the kind of things that put wind in our sails. And then we scored those things, so it went from a 1 to 10, how much faster will it make us go, or a -1 to -10, will it really slow us down? And actually in the process of that, after scoring them, and really interestingly, even though things were here, actually computer spec was scored as a -8 for Sam and a -1 for somebody else. But actually these things in the middle were like, okay, these are issues, but actually they're not massive issues. So these are the real key things that are holding us back and opportunities for us to go forward. And then these were the actions that then came out of it that they were able to take away and take forward. One of my favourite on here is, where is it? Well, one is cake, which got a +10. Cake always gets +10. But they had a summer intern when we did this, working with the archives team, and the intern put up intern doing odd jobs, and he kind of really floated around it. He was really, you could see how nervous he was about putting it up. And we kind of had a conversation about each post-it note, and he said, well, I just feel like I'm always just interrupting you. I feel like I'm just that annoying person that doesn't know anything. I don't know. And the team scored him as a +9. And they said to him, no, you are phenomenal. And they changed the post-it note, and they put intern doing odd, crucial jobs. And that really, it was just it's the magic that I love in the work that I do, is when you see somebody who's really uncertain about the work that they're doing, all of a sudden have this massive beaming smile on his face, because he felt part of the team, he felt valued, and that's interaction. That's not about some kind of process where he's being, his annual review, or his end of placement review with the boss. This is coming from the actual team, which meant so much more. And that was just a lovely thing to see. And because some of these things were change projects, the Swedish GIS programme, they've given that a +10, and that was one of the change projects that we wanted to get that programme running slicker, because they do development as well as part of that team. That really helped the business, and it left them with a real buzz at the end of this session. The team, and actually one of the people in the team were quite, sat in the corner doing his thing very quietly. He's in charge of keeping all the systems up and running. Nobody ever really interrupted him unless something went wrong. Whereas actually having these boards actually showed that he'd been upgrading the computers, and actually as technical support, that's quite often all you do ever get, isn't it? Is you only hear from people when there's a problem. They don't realise that you're working your backside off to keep the system up and running 24/7. And actually having the board actually helped the team to recognise how much work he was doing in the background. And I've seen that in other organisations as well, where actually just getting the stuff on the wall really makes a difference in terms of making sure that people are aware of what's going on and seeing the contribution that other people are taking and getting people talking about it as well. I did it with a health and safety guy in a manufacturing company. He just sat in his corner in a bubble and, you know, didn't engage with anyone. And actually when I first introduced it, he was like, thank you very much, I know what I'm doing. I don't need your help, I don't need your micromanagement, I don't need your silly boards, thank you very much. And I said, look, please, just try it. I'm coming back in a couple of weeks. Whack your board. You've done the board. Whack it up on the wall. See what happens. Come back a couple of weeks later. He was like, it's not about me, is it? And that was the point. It's not about me. Because he put his board up, and people were coming past, and they were like, yeah, all those annoying improvements that you make for health and safety reasons. Oh, suddenly I realised why you're doing that. Oh, and actually that's going to cause a problem because of that. Oh, right, I didn't know that. Let me work that in. So he went from being this kind of really annoying person in the company that just went around implementing changes and just aggravating everybody, to this guy that went around making people safe and happy and improving their days. And a real turnaround. And again, just about talking and getting that interaction and communication going. Again, I kind of talk about the magic of Agile quite a lot, but this is from the same company. So I went back a couple of weeks later and they decided, so you can see it's a much posher boat than it was before, and it's got flags and sharks and sea and all sorts. But this is where they're looking at developing a new market, so they're looking at moving into the Midlands, where there's also some mining issues up there, or there's a scope for business. And so what they did was they used the sailing boat game again to say, okay, what are the things that are holding back from getting into that market, and what are the things that are going to put in wind in our sails and take us forward positively. And I think that's where the magic in Agile happens, is when the business takes it and starts using it in their own way, because that's really good to me, because it doesn't mean that I've just told them to do it. It's you've facilitated it, you've shown them a tool, and they start using it themselves in really innovative, lovely ways. I mentioned the 80-20 principle with the Agile marketing, and I think there is a real issue with this idea of being Agile over being perfect. Some people really struggle, like I can't let it go until it's perfect, can't let it, especially creative agencies, they really like to have things perfect. And just getting them into that mindset that actually, if they get it out there earlier, they'll get better feedback from their customers, and then they'll end up with a better product in the long run. Was anybody here last year for my session? Oh, that's interesting actually. Last couple of years I used to have. This is a company I work for called Crown and Glory Hair Accessories. Work with, sorry. And last year I presented this as an example of a minimum viable product. Sophie's fabulous, she's very naturally agile, and she basically got a tweet, so it was July last year, she got a tweet, and one of our customers said, you know what, I would just love it if I could just pay you like £20 a month, and you just send me a box of goodies. And she said, I can do that. So she literally there and then made up a box of goodies, and she had some underlying issues in the business, so she had a bit of waste building as the business was growing. She had odd bits and pieces where she'd like created 100 of something and sold 88, and now there were 12 left over and she didn't know what to do with them. So she started creating the Glitterati box, and it was a subscription box, and what it allowed her to do was use up some of her leftover products and things like that, but actually it really evolved quite quickly. So what she started doing then is theming the boxes, she started collaborating with other businesses to fill the boxes. She started to put new product ideas into the boxes to get feedback, because a lot of the people that signed up were very quite loyal customers to her. And she created a Facebook community as well. And actually I think the really interesting thing about how this has grown from literally a tweet and a set up PayPal direct debit is she's now got 150 subscribers who subscribe every month. Which is brilliant because it gives her regular income into her business. She's only a small business. And also she's built this community, and actually it was really, I mean, it really hit me quite hard when I watched all her customers put together this video, really long video, basically thanking her for Glitterati, because the community has actually been somewhere where people can go and they can talk about their issues and they can make themselves feel better. And actually that was what was underlying Glitterati. That's why people are buying the box, is because they want a box of beautiful things to make them feel better. So she's latched into the value that's being delivered by her products as well as the physical product themselves. And I think it's a really lovely example of where somebody can just go out and do something and build the product as you go by responding to people and responding to things. And actually know that she's kind of hit a limit at 150 subscriptions. The other thing that was great was because she won a contract with John Lewis and suddenly had to start mass producing like 300 or 900 items at a time. And the Glitterati box had allowed her to scale up as well. So where she was used to only making 1 or 2 hair accessories, all of a sudden she had to make 300 of those things every month for the box. So when John Lewis came along and said, yeah, we want 500 of those, she went, no problem. Because she'd scaled her business in a way that was manageable to her. She doesn't want to be some massive global multi-million-pound business. She just wants a great business, you know, that fulfills her needs, and that's what's important to her. One of the other things I get is, isn't it a bit like letting go of the wheel? Ooh, it feels a bit like letting go of the steering wheel, this Agile. You know, no plans, what? And I always have to correct people and say, no, you can still have a plan. You can still have a plan, but what we need to recognise is that plan's going to change. So it's only your best guess at what the solution is going to look like. You need to have that reality check that that's not going to stay on course. So yes, you know, we're not saying throw the plan out the window. We're saying have a plan, but recognise until you start talking to people and get a solution out there, you're not really going to get that learning. And I think that's the same in anything you do in life. You know, you think you're going to do something one way, you start doing it, whether it's decorating the front room or, you know, going on holiday or breakfast at Agile on the beach. You know, you think you've got a great plan, but actually you need to respond to change because things happen all the time. So that, I think, has been one of the kind of things that just kind of gets people sometimes, because they take Agile too far. They take it very kind of literally, like, oh yeah, no plan, no documentation, no, it's over, not instead of. It's and this is the final one, really, is not listening to the writing on the wall. Probably one of the biggest single problems that people adopt Agile, and they have a wonderful wall, they have a wonderful board, and they don't listen to what it's telling them. You know, they kind of go, yeah, let cardboard's go. And I actually had one business that literally had this, and I went in to see her after, and she went, we need a bigger waiting box. Do you? Yes, yeah, we need a bigger waiting box, look. And it was literally coming down here, across here, up here. You know, it was just a massive, massive waiting issue, blocked issue. And so what we did was we kind of said, well, why is everything stuck here? And actually it was an issue with their process. Their process was only giving them 2 weeks to do something, and actually it took up to 6 weeks for a majority of the products. So actually they needed to change their process. They needed to listen to the writing on the wall and change things in order to produce a better flow. And that business has really, you know, grown and adopted Agile, and it's really made a difference. So it's, I think, just one of those key things that Agile isn't necessarily the solution. It's a way of showing you where the problems are and recognising those and then finding ways to resolve those problems. I had a great company, one of the first ones that I worked with, that were, they were kind of basically saying they were a team of 4 developers, well-paid developers, working on a product. They were also responsible for technical support for 50 other people. So if a printer went wrong or something like that, they were the ones that they were called. And they said to their manager, we are, you know, it's huge interruption, huge distraction, you know, we're very expensive technical support. It was great when it was one developer and we were only 10 people, but now we're this big, it's just not working. We're spending an awful lot of time. Yeah, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Put the stuff on the wall, started tracking their technical support. Manager walked in. Oh my God, how much time are you spending on technical support? You're really expensive technical support. So what they did was they got a technical support person in. So it actually worked out that over 20% of their time was being spent on technical support. So one person in that team was basically full-time on technical support. So again, really expensive technical support person. So they got a technical support person. Not only did it then increase their capability and capacity to get them back up to 100%, because they weren't being constantly interrupted and disrupted, they were actually able to focus on coding, and as a result, the quality of their work went up and their happiness factor went up because they weren't being distracted and interrupted all the time. So again, it's about listening to that writing on the wall that helps to really kind of make improvements and get you guys working as a team to resolve those issues. Another great one was one on the wall where we were kind of saying, I was saying, encouraging a team to come and join other departments, teams, so trying to get them to cross over. And they had like a change project and they had Exeter University up there. And they were like, yeah, we're really struggling to get hold of Exeter University and we want to engage with them to potentially do this project. And the guy from the other team went, do you know Dave's wife works for Exeter University? Oh, brilliant. They had a key contact in the organisation into that department in the university, but because they weren't talking to each other as a team, nobody knew about it. So again, it's just those little things, I think, that just really make a difference by adopting Agile to actually help the businesses to think differently and behave differently, and for the managers and directors and the leaders of those businesses to actually implement the changes needed, because they've become visible to them. So I come back, my kind of almost last slide, and went, almost on time as well, which is amazing for me. I'm a definite 10 minutes late kind of person, so. But it comes back to this kind of Agile Manifesto. So, and again, this idea of over, not instead of. And you'll notice that I have tweaked it slightly in that working solutions rather than working software, just because that's more generally, it's more generally applicable to people, any business. But also, I tend to think actually software companies, you're not looking for working software, you want working solutions. You want solutions that actually solve the problem for the customer, not wonderful code that's absolutely extraordinary. That's great, but if it doesn't actually fit for purpose, then there's not much use in it. But yeah, just remembering this and keeping that at its core is really, really important. Any questions?
I think you should write, writing a book, Agile. I think you should write the book anyway.
Or Elizabeth.
Right, the book. Oh, the book. No, it's a book.
No, the book about...
Oh, the book about the book. Yeah, there's a blog post on my website. I've written it up as a blog post on my website.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I say, I really wanted to kind of include. It was one of those things where with the book, there was so much more that I could put into this, but actually to get it out there and to get feedback, and then exactly this is I get the feedback, and that gives me the content for the next book. So.
Have you got that commissioned yet?
The second book?
Yeah.
No, not yet, not signed off, but when I get a chance I can. The publisher have been very much, well that was one of the things that Eloise said when we were having that kind of final discussion about what goes into the book. She kind of said, actually you can, she said you can write another book, Belinda. You don't have to get it all in this one book. And I was like, how very agile of you, Eloise. So, it's great. Somebody?
Great. You have lots of physical boards, lots of post-it notes on whiteboards. My team tends to use lots of virtual boards.
Yeah.
Would you rate physical boards over virtual boards?
Always start with physical boards with teams because it gets the tactile nature of it, gets people talking, gets people working together. I think if you go digital too quickly, you lose that element. So while I do love Trello, we use Trello quite a lot, and we use Slack as like a social network to communicate as well, and Google Drive and things like that, share documents. But yeah, I think I always try and get people doing it physically first, and then migrate that physical board. So even if it's a day's workshop where we create the physical board, and then at the end of that day, I introduce them to Trello and they migrate all that over onto Trello. That kind of works, but I do think the kind of touchy-feely nature of post-it notes and boards is really good, and really helps businesses to get out there, get everything out of their heads. Because I always say, don't put any structure to it, just get everything out of your heads onto the board, and then we'll structure it. Because as soon as I add structure, that kills your creativity and your thinking. So you're trying to put things in boxes. I don't want you to put things in boxes, I just want you to get it out of your head, what's going on in this business, and then build from there. Do you find that interesting? Yeah. It's a bit nerve-wracking when you kind of like, it's kind of taking that agile beyond the software really, and just using it not just in your software development, but more widely in your businesses. So it's 12 minutes past, so I suggest lunch.